Hi, investors. Today we'll be talking about the sustainability practices of Air France versus Lufthansa. With me here today is Sam, Hannah, Isabelle, Yash, and Samuel. Here's a quick overview of both companies. Lufthansa is a larger company with more planes and more flights per day, but Air France is a part of a bigger group partnered with the KLM group as well as the Delta Sky team. KLM has its hub in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Air France has its hub in Paris, France, while Lufthansa has its main hub in Frankfurt, Germany, and its secondary hub in Munich, Germany. KLM was founded in 1919 in the Netherlands. Lufthansa was founded on January 6, 1953 in Munich, Germany. And Air France was founded October 7, 1933 in Paris, France. In this presentation, we will talk about the different sustainability practices put in place by both airlines, and we'll also be comparing and contrasting as well. To speak next is Sam, and he'll be talking about Air France KLM and their sustainability practices.
Hi, I'm Sam. Since the Air France and KLM group merged in 2004, they have been committed to reducing carbon emissions and adhering to the UN Sustainable Development Goals of reducing CO2 emissions by 50% by 2050. I'm going to go into a bit more detail about how specifically they're reducing carbon emissions. So through route optimization efforts, KLM has reduced their CO2 output by almost 3,000 tons. They are also committed to making their operations as efficient as possible through purchasing fuel-efficient aircrafts and by deploying electric ground equipment to reduce their output on the ground. This has reduced their carbon emissions by 50% between 2018 and 2019. Additionally, they have reduced the cabin weight of their aircraft, which has resulted in a 7,000-ton reduction in CO2 emissions in 2019. Next, they made a goal of reducing their fuel usage by 4 million liters in 2019 and actually ended up exceeding this goal by over 300,000 liters in 2019. Finally, Air France KLM has shown a commitment to adopting sustainable aviation fuels, which have the potential to reduce carbon emissions by up to 80%. They have offered a program of allowing passengers to blend their flight between sustainable aviation fuel and normal fossil fuels, as well as investing in a production plant for SAFs and purchasing fuel for certain select flights. This has resulted in a 31% carbon emissions reduction per passenger since 2005, and in the last year, roughly 175,000 passengers have flown completely carbon neutral. Next, I have Isabelle to talk about more sustainable practices by Air France KLM.
So Air France KLM also utilizes a plethora of different other sustainability practices. This includes energy consumption, in which they have done so by reducing the number of energy that they use by using a new energy efficient lighting system that saved about 550 tons of CO2 this year. In addition, they use noise reduction strategies using both noise abatement and fleet renewal. Air France KLM Group reduced its noise footprint by 33% between 2000 and 2019. In contrast to the number of aircraft movements increasing by 18% over the same period. So since the ratio of global noise energy per movement has been constantly decreasing through this period, the KLM Group in 2019 actually represented a reduction of 43% compared to 2000. In addition, they support a plethora of biodiversity programs around their hubs and destinations. Some programs include Trip and Tree, CO2 Zero, and Aero Biodiversity. CO2 Zero has actually helped restore more than 1,000 hectares of tropical forest. Then they use waste management. An example of this is that they leave out the creamer and instead offer this to passengers on request, avoiding the embarkation and wastage of around 30 tons of products per year. They also utilize a circular economy with recycling uniforms to lessen their textile waste. Overall, Air France looks into waste management in a plethora of ways, from in-flight to food to aeronautical to textiles, and even in the office, to help rethink, reuse, reduce, and recycle their materials and waste. Next up is Yash, and he'll be talking about Lufthansa's sustainability practices.
Thank you. So now, Hannah and I are going to dive into Lufthansa's sustainability practices. First, I'll get us started by talking about how they've been committed to decreasing carbon emissions over the last few decades. So when it pertains to carbon emission reduction strategies, Lufthansa has tried a few different strategies. First, they are currently undergoing 21 different carbon emission projects, which aim to save 24.5 thousand tons of CO2 emissions if successful. Second, in 2019 only, they released 27 new aircrafts, all of which released 25% less emissions, promoting a long-term solution to high carbon emissions. Third, they're optimizing their operations by introducing more modernized navigation systems and, in addition, creating more efficiency on the ground in order to further decrease carbon emissions. Fourth, they're currently undergoing carbon offsetting missions with Compensate, as currently all of their employees' flights are offsetted and all passengers have the opportunity to do the same as well. Furthermore, when it pertains to sustainable aviation fuels, currently Lufthansa does not have any of their flights running on sustainable aviation fuels, but they look to undergo this in the future. Overall, Lufthansa has had a long-term success of decreasing carbon emissions, as since 1994, they have decreased specific fuel consumption by up to 30%. Now I'm going to pass it off to Hannah to talk a little bit more about their other sustainability practices.
In terms of plastic avoidance, the Lufthansa Group is very committed to replacing disposable plastic products in catering with environmentally friendly alternatives and to reducing the overall use of plastic packaging. Some specific examples of what Lufthansa has done so far is implementing new beverage cups made of recycled plastic and avoiding packaging for amenity kits. Almost 6 tons of new plastic has been saved by using 100% recycled PET water bottles. In terms of noise abatement, Lufthansa is very committed to reducing aircraft noise. As of 2019, 99.6%, and thus almost the entire operative group fleet, fulfilled or exceeded the strict minus 10 decibel criterion of the ICAO Chapter 4 standard. Additionally, Lufthansa became the first airline in 2014 to start operations with a new Airbus A320 equipped with noise-reducing vortex generators. Aircraft with vortex generators are up to 4 decibels quieter on their approach. In terms of green architecture, the Lufthansa Group is constantly thinking of ways to conserve natural resources when planning, renovating, and constructing new corporate buildings, such as the Lufthansa Aviation Center. Examples of this include thermoactive ceilings, heat-sensitive automated window shading systems, and thermally insulated facade. In terms of renewable electricity, beginning this year, the Lufthansa Group has been exclusively purchasing green electricity in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Belgium. In addition, Lufthansa has required green power certificates, which guarantee the production of green electricity from new power plants. Lastly, Lufthansa has a huge commitment to conducting climate research through the usage of their aircrafts. One contribution of the research includes collecting data concerning atmospheric trace elements and cloud components at cruising altitude on each flight, which allows more precise climate predictions to be made. Now I'm going to pass it off to Samuel to talk about the similarities between Air France KLM and Lufthansa's sustainability practices.
Through our analysis of the two companies' sustainability practices, we found that they have become more environmentally friendly in similar ways. We categorized the data we found into 5 metrics, 3 of which pertaining to carbon emissions, and the final 2 focused on other sustainability practices. The 5 metrics are as follows: utilization of SAFs, operational efficiency, carbon offsetting, noise emission, and renewable practices. In an attempt to become more environmentally friendly, the 2 airline companies have both focused on improvement in these 5 categories. By utilizing SAFs, both companies are trying to decrease their usage of fossil fuels and reduce their CO2 emission levels. Secondly, by making their aircrafts more efficient and lighter, they're trying to save fuel. Furthermore, both companies have developed ways to offset their carbon usage. They've also both focused on non-carbon-based initiatives, such as reducing noise emissions and working to use more renewable practices. While both of them are similar in these measurements to improve their sustainability, they are different in the way that they approach them. When analyzing the specific practices that each company uses, here's what we have concluded in regards to which company has the edge in each practice. Both companies utilize SAFs and provide passengers the ability to reduce personal carbon emissions by selecting a 1-to-1 ratio of SAFs to fossil fuels. However, Air France KLM purchased nearly 7,000 tons of SAFs, whereas Lufthansa provided no data on this issue, which is why Air France KLM holds the advantage in this area. Regarding operational efficiency, both airlines have made drastic efforts to reduce the cabin weight, thereby saving fuel. And according to 2019 numbers, KLM was able to reduce their CO2 output by 7,000 tons, nearly 200 more than Lufthansa, which gives them the advantage in this metric as well. Next, both companies have made outstanding reductions in their carbon usage, but KLM has been able to use a mere half-liter less per passenger per 100 kilometers, and therefore edge out Lufthansa once again. In noise emissions, Lufthansa is able to get their first advantage because they use noise-reducing vortex generators on their planes, but both utilize fleet modernization and noise abatement technology. Finally, since Air France has taken a more complete approach in renewable practices, they get the edge once again. With that, I'll pass it off to Hannah to make our final recommendation.
For these 4 reasons, utilization of SAFs, operational efficiency, carbon offsetting, and renewable efforts, we believe that Air France KLM is in the best position to achieve its goal of reducing CO2 emissions by 50% by 2030. Additionally, we believe that Air France KLM has been working towards improving our climate and environment with their various other sustainability practices more so than Lufthansa. While there are potential risks of investing in Air France KLM and other airlines right now because of the pandemic, we believe that the positive impact that this company has on the environment really outweighs these short-term risks.
Thank you so much for listening. We would love to take any questions that you have.